Hello, friend and colleague. It's Nikki from Full Voice Music on our show today, episode 197. It's a recap show, and we are highlighting some beautiful moments from season 8. Business, pedagogy, social media, best practices, and fun. Right here on the Full Voice Podcast. Hello, friend and colleague. Welcome to our show, and thank you. Thank you for pressing play. I'm so glad you are here. If you are a longtime listener, this is one of our recap episodes. We're going to recap and take some beautiful moments away from season 8. It's a great way to get some instant inspiration for your day, for your teaching, for your studio. But if you're new to our podcast, I just want to take a moment to just introduce myself and what this podcast is about. So my name is Nikki Loney, and I have been in the trenches teaching and running a voice studio for 30 years. But, well, I should be using past tense. I did run a voice studio for 30 years because this past year, I finally said goodbye to my last student. It was hard. There were feelings. But I have seen it and done it all. I always joke. I always joke with my students. I always say, yes, no, I survived the Hunger Games. But no, it's true. I said goodbye to my last student this year, and I have finished over 30 years of teaching, and it has been a joy and a blessing. In addition to being a voice teacher, I call myself the CCO, the Chief Creative Officer here at Full Voice Music. Full Voice Music is a small but so dedicated publishing company for young singers. We create resources for young singing students. And by young, I mean littles, all the way from 5 years old up into teenagers. So we really specialize in beginner materials. And our company has grown so much, and I am so grateful. So if you are listening to this podcast and you are supporting us, you're purchasing our workbooks or any of our books or using our repertoire in your studios, in your classrooms, I want to thank you. Not only are you supporting me and my team, but one of our top priorities at Full Voice Music is to pay our contributors properly. So we partner with composers, we partner with collaborators, and we create living wages for people that work with us. So I'm super proud of that. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you, teachers and friends and colleagues out there who are using our materials and supporting us. The podcast is one of the ways that we give back. We share incredible interviews with professionals in our industry who are doing incredible things, who are doing the hard things. We share really great information. And I think 9 seasons. We must be doing something right because we're at season 9. So there we go. Anyhow, I want to dive into this episode, and I want to celebrate all the people that we've had on this podcast, not only in the last season but in previous seasons. I cannot tell you how much my teaching, my business skills, everything has leveled up from just hosting this podcast and having wonderful conversations. I don't think a podcast goes by where I don't have something that I really need to sit with and consider and do better at and bring into my studio or bring into my business. So I'm so lucky. So let's get started. Our first, we're going to go back to episode 187. And my friends, this is one of my favorite podcasts because this is a teacher success story. We like to share teacher success stories because it just boosts all of us. When we know that teachers are doing hard things and succeeding, it gives us courage. It gives us permission to do the things that we think that we can't do. And episode 187 is called Raising Your Rates with Dr. Bethany Turpin. Now, Bethany's a friend of mine. She lives here in Nova Scotia. She's in Yarmouth. And Bethany had to do some serious math. And for those of you who are struggling with the thought of raising your rates just like $1 or $2, you're going to want to listen to this episode because Bethany had to double her rates. Here is a clip from episode 187 with Bethany Turpin. Okay, so for people listening to this who are going onto forums saying, I raised my rates $3 and I waited 6 years to do that. Okay, so Bethany just said... You doubled your prices. Okay, let's unpack that. Let's unpack that. So, how did you were like, yeah, I'm charging more, did you have some feelings about it?
Oh, I had a great many feelings. I it was really scary, and a lot of the things that I think everybody who increases their rates is like, maybe no one will come back. Maybe I will be penniless on the streets. I think the thing that really galvanized me to be like, I'm doing it and I'm not apologizing and I'm not looking back was the math, which I'm not a huge math fan, but I did some math and and it was kind of like, this is how much is required to run my business and be able to live. Mm-hmm. I can't argue with that. And also a realization of like, there's no point in running a business that can never support you.
Right.
Like that it's like, if I just don't charge enough, it doesn't matter how many students I have, I will still not be able to make a living off of my business. And that will result in business failure eventually. And so I at least want to have the hope of my business being solvent and something that I can actually live off of. And also things around like so many mindset things that I personally, I don't know how everyone else feels, I just had accepted from day one of music school that like musicians are poor. They will always be poor. You are always going to struggle. And then I kind of started to believe that like I deserved those things, that it's like I chose to be a musician, so I deserve to struggle. I deserve to never make enough money to be comfortable, and that's like the thing. And just kind of realizing that, yeah, those things are true for a lot of people, a lot of, musicians and not. But it's not something that's like, oh, this is just a consequence of your poor choices. It's like, no, I chose to be a musician, which is a thing I really love and a thing that's very valuable, and that I deserve to have the same amount of security and happiness as other people do. And that's like, I don't know, it's okay to want those things, and you're allowed to structure your business in a way that will allow you to have those things.
If you are charging for your voice lessons, well, guess what? You're running a business, whether you like it or not. Business skills don't come naturally to most of us. So one of the important things we like to do here on the Full Voice Podcast is share solid business information and business information from people who are in our industry. That is so important. Our industry is unique. So my dearest friend, Michelle Markwart Deveaux, the mastermind and beastie boss of the Speakeasy Cooperative, which is a community of voice teachers working together to build their businesses. She is our business expert, and Michelle has been on our podcasts from almost, I I think season 2. I think she was on our podcast. Michelle brings timely, hard truths to those of us that are struggling or wanting to do better in our businesses. And this episode 188, Michelle is talking about paying it forward with your pricing, meaning when you charge a living wage for your studio services, you can give back. You can do more, not just for you and your family, but for your community. Here's a clip from episode 188.
Then, of course, as I mentioned, you get the whole like, charge what you're worth, don't worry about it. And it's like, well, that's not helpful because, first of all, you can never charge what you're worth. You're too valuable to charge what you're worth. There's no way in a million years any human should put a monetary value on themselves. Stop. Don't do that. It's not money. Like that, it just doesn't work. So that, and I have a whole like workshop I give on that, so I won't do that here. And then the other reason is just because it is actually a very specific and detailed process to figure out your pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's step by step to do this, and there's a lot of factors that have to be accounted for when you choose how to price, because it's not only about how much you're going to make. It's very much a marketing and sales tool. Price is a marketing and sales tool. But until you're making enough money to think about it as a marketing and sales tool, you can't use it as the powerful marketing and sales tool that it is.
Right.
So if you're not making enough money to just meet your basic needs, you cannot use it as a marketing and sales tool intentionally, even though you are communicating something with that price that is a marketing and sales something you're communicating, right? If you're not charging a lot, you're communicating something. You are marketing something for that price, right? So I don't want people to ask Facebook groups anymore how to price. I want them to come to my pricing workshop. I want them to book a one-on-one with me, or any coach that knows how to actually take you through a pricing process. Like, it doesn't have to be me. Talk with your accountant, like whatever it is, because it starts with how much does it cost to run this business, including your salary. That's where it starts. And it's not, well, I think I could charge $60 an hour and then I could work 100 hours a week. And, I, you know what I mean? Right. I could make, I have Tina, the calculator here. We could figure it out. So, okay, I could charge $60 an hour and I could teach 20 lessons a week. And that's $1,200 a week. So I could, if I worked all 52 weeks, make $62,400. I could, if I worked hard enough, if I just charged this. Instead of how we should be doing it, in my not so humble opinion, which is how much money do you want to make? How much money does this business have to generate for you in order for you to cover all of the overhead of the business, running the business, all the continuing education, all the things that will be business expenses? How much do you have to make to cover that and pay your salary based on your personal financial needs, plus all the taxes, and make a profit so that you can build a capital fund / emergency fund / whatever? I need to make $100,000 a year. Start there. What do I need to charge? What do I need to do? Do I need more than one offer? Which offer needs to be priced what? That's just where you start, though. You have to have that number first, and then we start asking the nuanced questions. Great. What kind of offer is it? What kind of business do you want to own? And when I say business, I'm assuming we're all like voice teachers, music teachers here. So I mean, like, well, what kind of voice studio? Do you want to own something that has several different offers? Do you only want to be doing one-on-one voice lessons? That's a very different business model. Do you want to do voice and group? Do you also want to create downloadables? What kind of business do you think you want this to look like? What are the unique value? There's all of these other questions that go into it. How much revenue is this revenue stream making? In the overall revenue of the business. And people are like, well, I don't want to think about all that. And I was like, well, you chose to own a business. So you chose to think about that, whether you wanted to or not. Like, maybe you are bait and switched into owning a business. I'll give you that. What is that meme with the flag where it says, we don't do this because it's easy. We do this because we thought it would be easy. Right? It's good that we understand. It's so good. So that's what I meant by that.
As voice teachers, we often wear many hats. And one of those hats is quite often, performing. Many of us are teaching artists, and we are still on the stage singing our hearts out. In episode 189, my dear friend Sarah Rockwood, who is an artist embodiment coach, I love that, talks about how we need to nurture our artistic selves in order to truly serve our students. And I think we often forget that in order to, I guess the saying is, you put on that oxygen mask before you help somebody else. In this episode, Sarah shares a lot of inspiration, but she also has some really great ideas, just creative ideas and exercises to help us connect with the awesomeness that is us. Here is a clip from episode 189. To music, you had a couple other strategies for that.
Well, I think another one that can be helpful for just sort of taking ownership of how awesome you are. I think that's something that comes up for me again with clients as an artistic embodiment coach, is that I meet women that really don't know how good they are, who really haven't taken that in. And I shared with you one of my clients this year. She tripled her income just through owning how awesome she is. And we did this exercise, and it's a bit messy to start with, but it's writing down every single thing you know how to do.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't say do well, because I don't, at this point in the process, I'm not sure I trust you to determine if you do it well or not, because you're too down on yourself. So let's just put down every single thing you know how to do. Yeah. And it can take a few days. Like I personally like to do it with a giant piece of paper.
Nice.
That either you tack to a wall or you put on the floor again. And do your big brain dump session of getting as much as you can out, and then leave it for a few days and keep coming back to it and keep adding to it and keep, because you'll be brushing your teeth and go, oh, right, I did that thing.
Right.
I did that thing once. Yeah, I know how to do that again. So you go back, you write it on the list. And when you've got to a point where you feel like you've kind of exhausted things, start to group similar tasks together. This is where we kind of make the like good copy. Yeah. We start grouping similar tasks together. We kind of get a beautiful picture of just how broad our skill set is.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Because I think sometimes, when I was teaching singing full time before I moved into this coaching, life felt somewhat narrow some days. Like all I do is like, I work my curriculum for my students. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I kind of would forget that I was actually good at other things too. Absolutely. So when you can have, we create that big broad map of everything that you do. All those wonderful things are part of you being an artist.
Oh, right? So important, right?
Because that's the other thing we start to get into, that like artistry or being an artist is only emotional. It's only flaky. It's only like extreme, right? Like the whole method acting thing, or like irresponsible rock star thing. Right. No, I think you can be an artist and be able to do your taxes. Like these are things that like, no, they're one and the same.
It's a good point.
Yeah. And the more you know about the business side of your world, it does not take away from your artistic side. They become a beautiful unit.
That is so important. I want to thank you for speaking to that.
Yeah. The final thought of the broad map is that I would love it if that big, beautiful map of you can be somewhere where you can easily refer to it and regularly go back and look at it and read it.
Where would you suggest? Give me, like, where would you tell your
depending
clients?
on the size of paper, if it's a big piece of paper, take a photo of it. Keep it in your phone. Actually, I'd say that in general. Keep a copy of it in your phone. So when you're out and about, like, get back in touch with how awesome you are. Or keep it like in a file you can readily access on your desktop, whatever works in your lifestyle. Like, where do you regularly go? I mean, my office is set up in a way that my clients can't see all of it. So I can have my big, beautiful list out of camera sight. So I'm like, oh, client, yeah, Sarah. And then I come back to the client, it's like, take that moment to look to the left and go, and then back. It's so important because it starts to make us comfortable with celebrating ourselves, which we don't do.
We don't
and
do.
We should.
No, we should.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that because you're right. We do not celebrate our anything. We're just so worried about everything and comparing ourselves. And of course, social media does that for us, right? We just get to see everybody's a highlight reel. And then we immediately go into, well, they're doing all this stuff and I'm not there and da-da-da-da-da. And it really does wear you out after a while. And you forget. I love that. In episode 190, I reflect on my teaching experiences and really dive into student retention, what it is and how it happens. Here's a clip from episode 190. As an avocational adult, I had a little more flexibility in my lessons with my students, because sometimes with avocational adults, they may want to come in and just start by preparing for an audition or to get their confidence. And I want to just speak to that. When you are dealing with avocational adults, their goals are going to be different compared to, say, a professional or a semi-professional performer. They're going to have a different parameter for why they are taking lessons. But I do want to say, an avocational adult that comes for lessons is doing it because they love to sing. And in a lot of cases, in my experience, somebody has told them when they were little or in high school that they shouldn't sing. And my friends, I know you know this, but I'm going to say this here, and do not be afraid to tell others. When somebody truly wants to sing and somebody tells them that they shouldn't or they can't, a piece of that person is taken away. A piece of them is removed. I have seen this time and time and time again. And maybe somebody did the same thing to you. And I know if you've been teaching for any length of time, you've heard the stories. And you've seen, if you just take a second, you can see that piece that is missing. And I love working with my avocational students. I love working with them to find that piece and to put it back. That is one of the most rewarding things that I do, that I've done. And no, I'm not crying, you're crying. Each and every month, Full Voice Music hosts live office hours. This is a free teacher webinar where we present on a topic, a subject, and we answer your questions. Now, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see our previous live office hours. We've had some really great topics. We've talked about voice change with Dr. Ginevra Williams. We've talked about helping singers develop pitch accuracy. We've had some really great live office hours, and they're all posted on our YouTube channel. Now, if you would like to be part of a live office hours, and remember, they're free, All you need to do is sign up for our newsletter. You'll be notified when we have a new topic and a new live office hours, and you can register with your questions. Visit our website, fullvoicemusic.com, and sign up for the newsletter, and I hope to see you at our next live office hours. Nikky Philips is our guest on episode 191. She is a composer from New York, and her work, the Tweens and Teens Songbook, is an absolute delight. In this episode, not only do we showcase some of our favorite songs from that work, but Nikky talks to us about her intentions as a composer, some really great takeaways for teachers. With your voice studio, how does your work with composing and working with musical theater shows, how does that impact your teaching?
It definitely impacts my teaching. I think I have maybe a little bit of a different understanding of a song in terms of coming from a writer's perspective. So a lot of the times when I work with my students, we'll look at a piece and, I'll comment on how the music is supporting the lyric, or why did this composer make this choice? Why do the dynamics say piano? What's going on emotionally in the for the character, for the dynamics to be that way? I always communicate with my students, especially because I know firsthand everything is intentional on that page, every note, every word. So you have to, first of all, really respect that, and also use it as a guide. A lot of what singers are trying to achieve in terms of performance is on the page. Like the music, even the sheet music, a lot of those little hints, a lot of people ignore, just even just dynamics or articulations or anything. And that is literally the composer telling you what their intention is. And I like to make sure that my singers are aware of that.
Oh, such a great takeaway. Garrett Breeze was my guest in episode 192. He is a prolific, thousands and thousands of arrangements for show choirs. In this episode, not only does he talk about his process for arranging for show choirs, but we actually talked a little bit about copyright laws. Very interesting stuff on episode 192. It's giving them the permission. I remember working with a student once, and we were trying to come up with an audition cut, and she was like, "Well, you can do that?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you can just take a part of the song," and I'm like, "Yes, of course you can." It's like sometimes it's just as simple as having the permission to change something, right?
There's this mindset that comes with a certain type of education where you just get to this point where it's like the composer is God and the composer's intent is everything. And if it's not on the page, you don't dare, have your own interpretation. You can't change anything. And I've been in the dark. I've gone over to the dark side for long enough now with commercial music that, that doesn't bother me anymore. But I just think people get very fixated on what's on the page.
Sure.
And they don't give themselves permission to try things and to get out of their comfort zone. And it's just a different type of music education. It's not right or wrong, but I personally find that it opens up a lot of doors when you can teach your students to be flexible and to be willing to make changes and to try different things. And that's really, as performers, right? There's always a certain amount of decision making you have to do musically.
Sure.
How am I going to take this crescendo or these dynamics, or where am I going to switch into my head voice and all that kind of stuff. You have those sorts of interpretation decisions. I guess what I'm saying is don't limit yourself to just that, because you can also now depending on what you're doing, there may be some copyright implications, but
of course.
But for the most part, if you're not having to write anything down, it's legal. So what I mean by that is when we talk about music copyright, really what we're talking about is a collection of different rights. So I've had it described as a bundle of sticks, right? So if you write a song, Nikki, you control all of the rights to the different ways that song can be used. Mm-hmm. So the right to record it is a stick. The right to notate it is a stick. The right to sync it up with a video and put it on TV, that's a stick, right? Every different way you could possibly use the song is its own license or its own permission, its own copyright. And so when I say you don't need to get permission because you're not writing something down, what I mean is if you buy the sheet music to a song and you decide to sing it a forte instead of a mezzo forte, you know what I mean? Like that's
right.
You're not changing that music that you purchased. You're just going your own way, right?
Helping our students with performance anxiety is a big part of our teaching responsibilities. And my special guest on episode 193 was Amelia Carr. Now, Amelia had just finished a massive research project on performance anxiety. She shares some of the feedback in episode 193, but this is one of my favorite takeaways from that episode. I want to just wrap things up, but when you're working with singers, young singers, you know this, they're changing so much. They're growing so much. Their voice change, body change, their awareness. What's one of the key takeaways that you would give to teachers about understanding this is such a changing time for their singers in front of them? How would you inspire teachers through this time of great change?
Well, I have one very simple thing, and it's ask at the start of the lesson, what are your goals today?
I love that.
Sometimes we can be so, I was going to say obsessed, but I mean that in a positive way. We could be so driven by, I've got to do this. We've got this recital. We've got this competition. We've got this coming up. But actually, sometimes just listen at the beginning to what their goals are. And it doesn't matter what goals I have as a coach, it matters what goals they have. So there's two questions I ask. What are your goals today? And then if it's loads of things, sometimes I'll say, when you leave that door in 30 minutes time, in 60 minutes time, what do you want to walk out with? So then I know in the last 5 minutes, what have you achieved today? What are you taking away with you? Have I helped you meet your goals today? So they walk out that door going, I've done this, and I've done everything I wanted to do today. And sometimes we just have to put the brakes on for the student. So if they're coming in and they're overwhelmed with growing and changes and pressures at school, pressures at home, so many complex things, sometimes we have to just sing.
Oh, amen.
Listen, or just do something that they need to do. And sometimes we have to go, do you know what? Should we just pull out of that recital because, I'm getting, am I getting that? Ask the question. Take the brakes off for them. There's no recital that they can't miss. There's no competition that they can't do another time. Yes, sometimes we have to kind of say, right, I'm hearing you loud and clear. However, in 3 days' time, you're going to be auditioning in front of Cameron McIntosh. Do you want to sacrifice that goal right now? And if that child understands, or that young person understands, and they say, I need to put the brakes on, or they're giving you all those signals, we need to listen. Otherwise, they're just going to stop singing, or they're going to be overwhelmed. They're going to lock things away. And yeah. And I wish I had that wisdom. 20s.
Yep.
When I opened my studio, I felt so young.
but I wanted to be so full of wisdom. And I think if only I'd have had that when I started. But, you know, we grow, we learn, we change, we evolve. I'm not being harsh on myself, but I do wish that as a young teacher, I would have had that skill.
Oh, me too. I thank you so much for that. Is that you just gave me goosebumps, because I felt the same way as a young teacher. I thought I had to fix all the things and force all the things, and everybody had to be go, and I know that did not serve many of my students back then. And I always, even we were talking about neurodiversity and ADHD and autism, like. I can think back to the students in my studio that I just didn't know, right? When you know better, you do better. And I think of I call them my do-over students. And I wish I could go back and give them a space that was perfect for them, because the space that I was creating was for me. In episode 194, I dive deep into the topic of practicing. Oh, my friends, I know the pain and suffering. I've been there. I wanted to approach practicing and some of the best practices from a different standpoint, and I think you'll find that this podcast is going to make you think. So let's dive into some of those practicing challenges and what we can do to help our students. Now, I do want to differentiate. There's different types of music studios. So generally speaking, I would say if you are a teacher that is running what I would call a high-level competitive result-driven studio, so you're working with the students that are on a career track, professional, they have professional intentions. So you are probably less likely to be dealing with some of the challenges that, say, a teacher that is working with beginner students of any age, by the way. It's not just children. Beginner students, like avocational students, they have different motivations. They have different goals than, say, somebody that is on a career track. So I think for the teachers that are running those studios that are dealing with more professional students, you're not going to the consequences of not practicing at that level kind of take care of a lot of the practicing issues. I know it did for me when I started working professionally. Practicing wasn't an option. I had to do it to survive. I had to do it to put food on the table. But if you are working with beginners, avocational singers, regardless of the age, their motivations, their reasons for being there can be very different. So I think one of the things that we can do, and that's important, is that we do need to align our expectations to the needs and the goals of our students. So if you're working with a professional, practicing is serious business, right? They have to. No, there's no joke about that. But what about the goals for any beginner who's just starting with singing lessons? A child that's just trying something new, a parent that sees that their child is really interested in singing and is just getting started. What should their goals be? Or an avocational adult that is just started. I mean, it took them a lifetime to build up the confidence to come to your studio to just discover their voice. What do we compare their goals to that of a professional? So if you are a teacher who is welcoming all abilities, all levels, how do we set them up for success? Like, how do we support them? And I think it's a really important check-in. Are we comparing one student's progress to another student's progress when they have different goals and objectives? So here's some guidelines that I use for my beginners. So if I am working with young children or a beginner adult, my first goal for that student, for that family, is to make them confident and comfortable enough that they enjoy singing at home. The end. That's what I want. That's my first goal. I'm not going to ask them to sing exercises. I'm not going to give them a list of things they have to do. I just want them to sing at home. And I want them to be able to get set up at home. And you can start this conversation about the enjoyment of singing at home before they even get started. And this is a really great practice that I started doing a few years ago. So I would always ask students. So if it was a child, I would talk to parents first, and I would just say, do they like singing at home? Or if I'm dealing with an adult, I'm like, do you like singing at home? Right? Do you feel comfortable singing at home? Or are you comfortable to sing at home? Where do you usually sing? Now, this question, it totally opens up a conversation that may identify some of the singing challenges. And to have this conversation before you get started can help everyone, not just you, the teacher, but parents and the adult, get started on the right foot. It can help them kind of address some of those concerns before they get frustrated. Now, I highly recommend that you put a question like this on your student intake form to get this conversation started. Do you feel comfortable singing at home? Where will singing at home be taking place? And this will lead into another important conversation, which is about what devices will be used for practice. Who is responsible for getting the backing tracks or recordings onto said devices? Here's a couple of examples of things that we were able to address before we had issues. I have had adult students that aren't really good with those mobile phones. They don't realize that they've got like a little mini computer in their hand and there's so many things that they can do. I've actually had to show my adults how to access YouTube videos and karaoke videos on their phones. They didn't know. They didn't know you needed an app for YouTube. They didn't know you could record voice memos on their phone. So sometimes initial lessons can be getting families or adults set up with simple tools to make practicing easier. Do you have students who are interested in learning to write songs? Or are you trying to find ways to help your students learn to sing in harmony? Or maybe you just have a student that needs some help to develop their singing confidence. I am so excited. We have a new resource at Full Voice Music called Forest Adventure Songs. These are singing and composing cards. This is a deck of 60 cards with melodies, rhythms, tongue twisters, and fun little challenges. There are endless games and activities that will absolutely wow your students. Please visit our website, fullvoicemusic.com. That's the only place you're going to find them. And check out our new Forest Adventure Song cards. You're going to love them, and your students are going to be overjoyed. Social media is such a huge part of running our studios and promoting and celebrating what we do. Our social media expert, Karen Michaels, is a regular on the Full Voice podcast, and we could have no one else because in addition to being a social media expert, she is in the trenches, just like us, teaching piano and voice as well as performing, and she always brings inspiration and great ideas to voice teachers. You know, when you first jumped on Instagram and it was such a friendly place, right? Like I much prefer Instagram to any of the others. I mean, I participate, but the vibe and the feedback. So now you're seeing that it's a new one, like Substack's community is got a really great vibe. So that, you know,
I have already, so yesterday I was chatting with a girl who is a writer and in Germany. And her and I, my husband walks in, he was like, hi, hello, good morning. And she is in Germany and we were talking about writing and she's a mom and obviously I'm a mom. And I was like, this is the epitome of perfection of what social media has always been to me. and why we want to participate.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to welcome everyone to think like, let's go back to the roots of what social media is, which is, I wouldn't have known you. We definitely wouldn't have known Michelle and the Speakeasy Cooperative, and so many of my Nats friends. And, it's amazing to me that the globalness of social media friends, especially if you are careful and smart and and utilize all the tools, if you will. But it's incredible the communities that you can partake in, become a part of, and create. And that's the thing, like the few people, it's what's been interesting to me is people are like, "Oh, Karen, your take on social media is so refreshing." And I was like, "Wow, I feel like I've been saying this for a long time." But it's, when you meet new people and they hear your perspective, or they learn what you're doing, or you inspire them, they inspire you. I mean, that's what community is. And that's what social media can be. And instead of this, oh my God, I got to go post and I got to do this, what's that alt text thing that Karen's always talking about? And yeah, yes, there is a little bit of that, but
let's speak to that. I mean, you often talk about how overwhelmed people are. Okay, so
yeah.
evil Nikki here.
Yes,
Overwhelm, I mean, a lot of it has to do with not having systems,
that's
with
right.
not
For
having
sure.
with not really understanding why you're doing it, or what you want from it, or what
Yep.
community you want to be part of. Like, it
That's
really
right.
is the We wrapped up our season 8 of the Full Voice podcast in episode 196, where I talk about building a business you love. Now, I can go back to the very first days, and for those of you just getting started, it's hard and scary. And I know that my first couple of years in the teaching studio were, well, I'm just going to say they were pretty miserable. And I wanted to share some of the big wins and some of the big changes that I made in order to grow a business that brought me joy every day, no matter how tired I was. So here is a clip from 196. So if you've just finished up a season, and I'm encouraging you to reflect back on your previous year. This is important. This is important. Sometimes we get stuck in the minutia of day to day, into the rush and everything. We don't actually reflect on enough things. So here's some questions to reflect on. You can, while you're driving your car, listening to this podcast, just kind of keep a mental checklist as you keep your eyes on the road. So question number 1, what were the highlights of your teaching year? What do you need to celebrate? And this is important because we don't celebrate our victories enough. No matter how small, what were some of the best things that happened to you? Now, celebrating your students' successes, yes, but what else? What else happened in your studio that was really great? Maybe you expanded a day. Maybe you took away a day and you're teaching less. Maybe you got your marketing game together and you saw an influx of students. Let's celebrate the things that worked for you. So if you had, give me top 3. Give me the top 3 things. Just shout them out wherever you are, unless you're like in public transit. So what were those big wins? And then what were some of the challenges? What were some of the things that ruffled your feathers, or you had to, put some extra effort in? And again, challenges can be little things, like little inconveniences, but they can also be those awkward, uncomfortable things that you have to really make some like serious changes in the upcoming year. What are some of the things that made you change your policies? Okay, here's another question. How long ago was it that you updated your policies? Because I would start there. Policies need to be updated all the time. Here's another question. Do you need to raise your rates? 99% of teachers need to raise their rates. We have been undercharging for decades. So please don't tell me that nobody in your neighborhood can afford it, because I will direct you to the season opener of season 8 of the Full Voice podcast with Bethany Turpin, Dr. Bethany Turpin, who not only raised her rates, she doubled them because she was undercharging, because the community that she lives in, God bless Nova Scotia, has so undervalued music teachers that it was criminal what they were charging. And Bethany did the brave thing and she doubled her rates, and she did not die. She didn't die. Sure, she ruffled some feathers. Of course she did, but I'm proud to say that Bethany, I check in with Bethany all the time. She's doing great. So if you have not heard the Raising Your Rates podcast at the beginning of this season, and you're scared of raising your rates, you better check it out, because Bethany goes through the whole thing. And yes, she was scared, but she did not die. All right. So, self-reflection and reflecting on your business. I also want to I would highly, highly, highly demand, what are your numbers? What did you actually make teaching? What did you make? Where were your expenses? What is working for you? What is the best ROI for your studio? I know a lot of teachers out there that have started doing small group classes. I know this because they came to our small group class workshop, and I have probably seen, close to 200 teachers do that program in the last year. And I am seeing so much success and celebration on the socials, teachers that are offering more and more classes. Group classes are a great way to increase your income without teaching more. So what are your numbers? What are they telling you? Are they telling you you're undercharging? Are they telling you you have lots of expenses? Remember, you don't need to have feelings about numbers. It's just data. It's just information. It's not good information or bad information. It's just information. So keep that in mind, but don't put those blinders on and just put your head down and keep working a million hours. Look at your numbers. Look at your numbers. Small changes can make huge impact on those numbers. My friend and colleague, there you have it. There is our Season 8 recap, a great way to get back into your never-ending professional development. I love that. I am so excited for Season 9. We start with the delightful and talented Donna Rodenizer. Donna Rodenizer is an incredible composer as well as a music education specialist. She has over 30 years in classroom music. She is an absolute delight. We are going to be talking about winter, holiday, Christmas music. We're going to be sharing some of our favorite tunes and some new music that is available. And we're going to be talking about recitals and concerts and some of the strategies when you're working with young singers and when you're working with singers that are new to performing. It's going to be a fabulous show. That's going to be coming up, episode 198, right here on the Full Voice podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Now, my friend, without further delay, I want to wish you an incredible, incredible season of teaching, inspired teaching, and